The door to apartment 4B was already open when Caleb got home, and the thing standing in his kitchen was not his landlord. It was 7 feet tall, had 4 arms, skin the color of a bruised plum, and was currently holding his coffee maker upside down and staring into it like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Hey," Caleb said, because he was from Ohio and that was what you did. The creature turned. Her eyes were gold, split down the middle with a vertical black pupil, and then they blinked in a sequence that did not match any human pattern. 3 fast, 1 slow, 2 fast. She made a sound like a dial-up modem trying to sneeze, and then said, in perfect English, "You are the male tenant." "Caleb," he said. "Caleb Noor. I am Vielle Theories of the 7th Convergence House, exiled daughter of the matriarch Keth, currently designated as exchange resident under Galactic Integration Compact Article 9. She paused. "I will be staying in the second room." Caleb looked at the second room. Its door was open. She had already moved in. There was a large, glowing orb on the floor that hummed like it was thinking, a rack of silver instruments he could not name, and what appeared to be his spare blanket wrapped around something that was either asleep or dead. "Cool," he said, and went to make coffee. She watched him make coffee with the intensity of a scientist watching a nuclear reaction. "You heat the water to an imprecise temperature," she said. "I like it strong." "You are wasting 17% of the extraction potential." "I know," Caleb said. "I still like it strong." She wrote something down on a flat silver tablet. He had the distinct feeling he had just become a research subject. That was a Tuesday. By Friday, Caleb had learned the following things about Vielle Theories. She did not sleep. She meditated in a standing position for 4 hours every night while emitting a low harmonic tone that was technically inaudible, but which he could feel in his back teeth. She ate something that looked like compressed chalk and smelled like a forest after rain. She thought human humor was a sign of neurological instability, and she found the concept of television genuinely disturbing. "You watch other humans perform fictional suffering," she said, staring at the screen. It's a comedy. They are embarrassing themselves. That's the joke." She tilted her head 45 degrees, which he was learning meant she was recalibrating her understanding of him. "You enjoy watching others be humiliated." "When it's fake and they agreed to it, yeah, kind of." 3 fast blinks, 1 slow. "Humans," she said, and wrote something on her tablet. The Galactic Integration Compact, as Caleb eventually understood it, was a program that placed alien exchange students with human households in order to study human culture up close. Vielle was writing a thesis. The thesis was about human adaptability. Specifically, she had a theory that humans were the most behaviorally flexible species in the known galaxy, and she wanted to prove it. What she had not expected was that her research subject would be equally curious about her. "What does your species do?" Caleb asked on the second week, and they were sitting on opposite ends of the couch. She sat with her legs folded in a configuration that made his knees hurt just looking at it. "We observe, we analyze, we preserve." "Preserve what?" "Knowledge, culture, genetic legacy." She said it the way someone might say they collected stamps. Very calm, very matter-of-fact. When a species faces extinction, the Convergence House catalogs what they were. So they are not lost. Caleb was quiet for a moment. "That's either the most beautiful thing I've ever heard or the most depressing." "It is both," she said. And for the first time, he saw something in those gold eyes that was not purely analytical. He did not push it, but he did not forget it either. The third week was when things got complicated. Vielle came to him on a Wednesday morning, standing in the kitchen doorway with her silver tablet, and wearing the expression he had come to associate with her, being about to say something that would require him to sit down. He sat down. "I have a proposal," she said. "Okay. My thesis requires a demonstration component, not merely observation. I need to document the process of human cultural transmission at its most foundational level." What does that mean in regular words? She set the tablet on the table, turning it so he could see the screen. There was a long document on it, official looking, with a seal he did not recognize at the top. "It means I want to breed." Caleb stared at the screen. Caleb stared at Vielle. Caleb looked back at the screen. "I want to breed," she repeated, apparently mistaking his silence for a hearing problem. "A cultural legacy project. With you as the primary human contributor, it is a significant honor. In my culture, the selection of a breeding partner for a legacy project requires years of assessment. I have assessed you." "You've known me for 3 weeks," Caleb said. 22 days, she corrected. "And 14 hours? I am thorough." "What exactly," he said very carefully, "does a cultural legacy breeding project involve?" She began to explain, and as she explained, Caleb started to understand that Vielle Thyris of the 7th Convergence House, exiled daughter of the matriarch Keth, had absolutely no idea what she had just walked into. Because a cultural legacy project, stouter in Convergence House terms, was a joint documentation effort, a record, a living archive. Two beings from different species collaborating to preserve human culture in the most comprehensive way the Convergence House knew, through shared creation of something that would outlast them both. It meant living together, genuinely, cooking together, arguing together, teaching each other things, building something that an alien archive could look at in 500 years and say, "This is what a human was, and this is what it meant to no one." It meant she wanted Caleb Noor, a 28-year-old former architecture student who now worked in urban planning and had a slightly irrational devotion to good coffee, to help her save something of humanity. She thought she was asking for a project. She did not know she was asking a human. And humans, when asked to do something that matters, do not do it halfway. "Okay," Caleb said. She blinked. 3 fast, 1 slow. "You agree?" "I have conditions." She pulled out her tablet. "State them." "First, I get to decide what we document. Hey, not just what you think is important, what I think is important. Acceptable. Second, you have to actually participate, not observe. Participate. Eat the food, watch the show, try the thing." Her forearms shifted. That was discomfort. He was getting good at reading her. "That is not standard protocol. That's my condition." A long pause. "Acceptable." "Third," Caleb said, and picked up his coffee mug. "You're going to need to understand that humans are messy and loud when we do things that make no logical sense. And we feel things really hard, and we break and we rebuild, and we are not a tidy species to document. If you want to know what we really are, or you have to be ready for all of it." Vielle Thyris looked at him for a long moment. The morning light came through the window and caught the gold of her eyes and made them look almost warm. "I have studied 47 species," she said quietly. "None of them have ever set conditions." "Yeah," Caleb said. "We're like that." She wrote something on her tablet. Then she looked up. "I accept your conditions, Caleb Noor." He raised his coffee mug. "Then welcome to the project." She looked at the mug, looked at him, and with great deliberation, retrieved her chalk block food from the counter and held it up in a mirror of his gesture. Caleb laughed. It was a real one, the kind that comes from somewhere unexpected. Vielle wrote that down too. She was beginning to understand that the data on humans had been drastically underestimating them. The real work had not even started yet. The first official day of the project did not begin well, nor Caleb had made a schedule. Vielle had made a schedule. The schedules were incompatible in every possible way. And they discovered this at 6 in the morning when Caleb walked into the kitchen to find Vielle had rearranged all the shelves alphabetically by what she called functional designation, which meant the coffee mugs were now grouped with the measuring cups and the spatulas were filed under heat transfer implements. "I cannot find anything," Caleb said. "Everything is precisely where it should be," Vielle said. She was sitting cross-legged on the counter, which was another thing she did that he was choosing not to address yet. "Your previous system was chaos. My previous system was mine." She tilted her head, recalibrating. "You have an emotional attachment to the physical arrangement of objects. I have an attachment to knowing where my coffee filters are at 6 in the morning. Yes." She unfolded from the counter in a single fluid motion and relocated the coffee filters to the drawer next to the coffee maker without being asked. It was such a small concession that he almost missed it. But he didn't. "Thank you," he said. "It is efficient to minimize your search time so you function better," she said. She was already back at her tablet. It was the closest thing to "you're welcome" he had gotten from her so far. He counted it. The first item on Caleb's documentation list was food. Specifically, the act of cooking a meal from scratch. He had learned, through careful observation, that Vielle's species processed information primarily through sensory data, meaning she understood things by experiencing them directly. Her chalk block food required no preparation. She had never cooked anything in her life. He was going to teach her to make his grandmother's rice dish. It was simple. Onion, rice, tomato, cumin, chicken broth, on in time. His grandmother had made it every Sunday. The smell of it meant something to him that he did not have words for. Vielle stood at the counter and watched him begin with the intensity of someone defusing a bomb. "The onion," she said. "Why does it make your eyes produce moisture?" "Because of the sulfur compounds released when you cut it. It irritates the eyes. It causes you pain. Minor irritation. And you willingly do this. It tastes better when you cook it first." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "You accept a degree of discomfort in preparation because the result is worth it." "Yeah," Caleb said. "That's pretty much what cooking is." She wrote that down. She was always writing things down. He had stopped finding it unsettling and started finding it almost companionable, like having someone take notes during a lecture you were both attending. He let her cut the second onion. She held the knife in 2 of her 4 hands, which gave her significantly more control than he had, and produced perfect uniform pieces in about 8 seconds. "Show off," he said. "I do not know what that means in this context. It means you're better at it than me, and I'm slightly annoyed." She looked at him steadily. "Should I do it worse?" "Absolutely not," he said. Get the tomatoes." They cooked together for 40 minutes. She asked questions constantly. Why this order? Why this heat level? Why add the broth now and not before? Why stir but not too much? He answered all of them and discovered, in the process, that he did not actually know why for several of them. It was just how his grandmother had done it. and he had never questioned it. "You are transmitting knowledge you received without full understanding," Vial said. This was not a criticism, it was an observation. "Most human knowledge works that way," Caleb said. "Somebody figured it out. They taught somebody. It got passed down. The why got lost sometimes, but the how survived." She went still in the way that meant she had encountered something significant. "That is what we try to prevent," she said. "The loss of the why." "Can you always prevent it?" A pause. "No." "Then maybe," Caleb said, stirring the rice. "Use the how mattering is enough." She wrote for a long time after that. The rice was done in 20 minutes. Caleb plated 2 portions, one for him and one, experimentally, for Vial. She could consume human food. She had told him this. She simply found it inefficient compared to her chalk blocks. He slid the plate toward her. She looked at it. She picked up a fork with one hand, which left 3 hands with nothing to do, which was apparently disconcerting because she folded them all behind her back. She took a bite. He waited. Her eyes did something he had not seen them do before. All the analytical layering in them went quiet for just a moment, like a screen going briefly dark before rebooting. "It is warm," she said. "Not only in temperature." "Yeah," Caleb said. "That's the point." She took another bite. She did not write anything for the rest of the meal. That evening, Caleb pulled out a box from his closet. It had photographs in it and old letters, and a handful of objects that would mean nothing to anyone who did not know the story behind them. A broken watch, a folded cloth, a small stone that had come from a river in India 60 years ago. He spread them on the coffee table. Vial sat across from him, her tablet face down. She was trying, he noticed. She was doing the things she had agreed to. Participating, not just observing. "And this is my family," he said. "Not all of it. The parts I have." She looked at the photographs carefully. She did not touch them until he indicated she could. "This is your genetic lineage," she said. "And more than that." She picked up the small stone. "What is this?" "My grandfather carried it from India when he emigrated. He kept it his whole life. He said it was to remember where the water was." Caleb paused. "I don't totally understand it either, but I keep it." Vial held the stone in her smallest hand for a long time. "In the Convergence House," she said, "when a species ends, we take one object from their world, one physical remnant. We keep it in the archive." She set the stone down carefully, exactly where it had been. "Your grandfather understood something that most civilizations do not discover until it is too late." "What's that?" "That memory requires a body," she said. "Something to hold it, something that can be touched." Caleb looked at the stone, looked at her. "Vial," he said, "why were you exiled?" The room went very quiet. Her 4 arms moved, a subtle shifting that he was not yet fluent in reading. "That," she said, "is a conversation for a different day." He did not push, but he filed it, because whatever it was had brought her here, to this apartment, to this project, to this specific human she had selected after 22 days and 14 hours. Nothing about Vial theories was accidental, which meant he was not accidental either. And that was the most interesting thing that had happened to Caleb Noor in a very long time. The call came on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks into the project. Caleb was eating cereal. Vial was standing at the window doing her morning analysis of the street below, narrating population movement patterns under her breath in her native language. which sounded like rainfall over metal, and which Caleb had started to find genuinely pleasant. Her communication device activated. It was not a phone. It was a flat disk she kept on the shelf near her meditation orb. And when it activated, it projected a pale blue figure into the middle of the room, about 18 inches tall, which was apparently standard for interspecies communication because the actual sender was 12 feet tall, and Caleb's apartment was not built for that. When the figure was another member of Vile's species, older. The skin was a deeper purple, the eyes harder, the posture of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Vile went rigid. "Daughter," the figure said in English, which Caleb understood was for his benefit and did not feel like a courtesy. "Matriarch," Vile said, "your quarterly report is overdue. The Compact Committee is inquiring about your progress. I am gathering data. You are lingering." The figure's gold eyes moved to Caleb. Bart assessed him. Returned to Vile. "A single human subject in a residential setting is not the scope we approved." "The scope I approved," Vile said very quietly, "is sufficient. Your methods have already drawn comment. Archive integration requires structured protocol, not—" The figure paused, the pause doing the work of a long sentence. "Domestic participation. I am aware of standard protocol," Vile said. "I am building something better." The matriarch looked at Caleb again, and he did not look away. He had learned, working in urban planning, that the people who looked away in meetings lost them. "The Compact has other volunteers," the matriarch said. "Species that would benefit from the visibility. Your continued presence in this placement requires justification." "I will file the report," Vile said. The projection ended. Vile stood at the window for a long time. Caleb finished his cereal, rinsed the bowl. Then he said, "Was that your mother?" "Yes. She seems fun." Something that might have been a laugh moved through Vile's chest. Not quite, but close. "She exiled me," Vile said. "And now she monitors me to confirm I am not wasting the exile." She turned from the window. "The Convergence House does not approve of my thesis. They believe human adaptability is already documented. They believe you are a known quantity." "What do you believe?" "I believe no one has ever actually lived with a human long enough to find out what you become when you are witnessed." She said it like she had thought it many times, like it had a shape from being thought so often. "Every species we have archived. We cataloged them from outside. We watched. We recorded. We preserved. But we never—" She stopped. "Participated," Caleb said. "Yes." He leaned against the counter. "Oh, and that's why she exiled you. Because you wanted to get close. I wanted to know if proximity changed the data." She looked at her hands, all 4 of them. "In every archive, there is a gap between what a species did and what a species felt. We have always assumed we could infer the feeling from the behavior. And you don't think you can?" "I think," she said slowly, "that I have learned more about humanity in 3 weeks living with you than in 4 years of external study. And that is either proof my thesis is correct or proof I am doing something deeply unscientific." "Maybe both," Caleb said. "Yes," she agreed. "Maybe both." He thought about her mother's face, the way the word lingering had been used like a scalpel. "Val, how long do you have before they pull the placement?" She turned her tablet over, showed him the screen. There was a countdown on it, not hidden, not in a folder, right there on the main display, running every second. 61 days. "Yeah, that's not much time," Caleb said. "No, Then we need to move faster. He stood up straight. What's the most important thing you haven't documented yet? She considered. Grief, she said. I have observed human joy and frustration and humor and nostalgia. But grief, genuine grief, not performed. I have not been close enough to see it. Caleb was quiet for a moment. I can't manufacture that, he said. I know. Now I would not ask you to. But I can show you what humans do with it. He crossed to the bookshelf, pulled out a book, handed it to her. It was a collection of letters written by people who had lost someone. Not famous people, ordinary ones. Letters to children, letters to parents, letters to friends. We write to them, he said, even after. We keep talking to the ones who are gone. Vielle opened the book with great care. She read the first letter in silence. He watched her face. The analytical layering did not go quiet this time. It did something different. It overloaded. Too much input processed too fast. She closed the book and pressed it against her chest with two arms, the way a human might hug something. She did not know she was doing it. They wrote to people who could not read it, she said. Yeah. They knew the letters would never be received. Yeah. And they wrote them anyway. Yeah, Caleb said. That's grief. That's what it does. Oh, it keeps reaching. Vielle sat down, not her usual cross-legged counter posture. She sat the way a human sits when they need a chair to be solid under them. In the archive, she said, we have the products of grief, art, monuments, rituals. But I have never understood the mechanism, the act of continuing to address someone who is gone. She looked up. Caleb, do you have someone you would write to? It was a direct question. She asked it gently. Yes, he said, like you do not have to tell me. My dad, he said. He died 4 years ago. I still talk to him, not always out loud. But I'll see something and think he would have liked that, or he would have hated that, and I would have loved arguing with him about it. Caleb paused. It's not that I forget he's gone. It's that I don't stop including him. Vielle was very still. That is the gap, she said. That is what we could never catalog from outside. The dead are not gone from the social network. We humans keep them active in the relational structure. You do not archive your dead. You integrate them. We carry them, Caleb said. She wrote for a long time, not on her tablet. She pulled out a piece of paper from his desk drawer, actual paper which she had not touched before, and she wrote on it by hand. Her script was like no alphabet he had ever seen, flowing and structural at once. He did not ask what she was writing. Some things earned the right to be private. Later that night, after she'd gone to meditate, he noticed the paper on the table. She had left it where he could see it, not facing him, just present. He did not read it, but he left the lamp on so it was not sitting in the dark. That felt right. He could not have explained why. It just did. The attack came on day 43, not a physical one, something more precise. Caleb came home to find 3 figures standing in the hallway outside 4B. Not alien. Human. 2 men and a woman in suits that said government without having any insignia. They had the kind of posture that comes from being told you represent something important. Mr. Noor, the woman said. Her name, he would learn, was Agent Claire Dobbs, Compact Liaison Office. We need a moment. He did not invite them in. Vielle Theris has been flagged for an early evaluation. Dobbs said. The Convergence House has submitted a formal query about the scope and nature of her project activities. Given that the project involves a human citizen, we are required to verify that I'm okay, Caleb said. That the documentation process meets compact guidelines. She's writing a thesis, Caleb said. She's living here. We cook, we talk. She asks me questions about human culture and I answer them. That's it. Dobbs looked at him with the expression of someone waiting for a different answer. The compact's concern, said the taller of the two men, is whether the subject relationship has exceeded standard parameters. What does that mean? The host is not meant to become invested in the researcher's outcomes. Caleb looked at him for a moment. You think I'm too close to it. We think the data may be compromised by mutual familiarity. The data, Caleb said slowly, is a person. Vile is a person. She is trying to understand what humans are. You cannot understand what humans are from a distance. That's the whole point. He looked at Dobbs. You want to evaluate her? Fine. Come in. Read the project files. Talk to her. But you are not going to tell me that caring about the outcome is a problem. That's not how humans work. Dobbs studied him. You understand that if the compact pulls the placement, your input terminates. I understand that if you pull the placement, not that you lose the only researcher in 4 years who has been willing to sit in the mess with us instead of studying it through a window. A pause. Dobbs looked at her associates. Something passed between them. We will schedule a formal review, she said. 10 days. They left. Caleb stood in the hallway for a moment. Then he went inside. Vielle was standing in the kitchen. She had heard everything. Of course she had. Her hearing range was 3 times his. You did not tell them to proceed without conflict, she said. No. That would have been the efficient approach. Yeah. Caleb dropped his bag on the chair. But it would have been wrong. She was quiet for a moment. Then, Caleb, why did you agree to this project? Truly. The first day, when I proposed it, you could have said no. Most humans would have. He thought about it honestly. Because you were standing in my kitchen, holding my coffee maker upside down, he said. And you looked at me like I was something worth studying. And I hadn't felt like that in a while. She did the blink sequence, 3 fast, 1 slow, but slower than usual, like she was processing something that required extra time. I will prepare for the review, she said. We will prepare, he said. The next 10 days were the most intense of the project. They went through everything. Caleb pulled documents, photographs, letters, objects. He sat with the Vielle for hours and answered questions he had never been asked before. What does belonging feel like in the body? What is the difference between being known and being understood? When a human is truly seen by another person, what changes? He answered all of them. Some answers he had to sit with for a long time before he could put words to them. Vielle processed, compiled. She was building something, not just a thesis, a portrait, and the most detailed portrait of a single human life that her archive had ever attempted. She told him this on day 8. I changed the methodology, she said. It is no longer a broad survey of human cultural adaptability. It is a deep study of one human. Everything you are, everything you carry, every system you use to navigate being alive. Me specifically, Caleb said. You specifically. That's a lot of trust to put in one data set. Yes. She looked at him steadily. I chose you after 22 days of observation because you do not perform. Most humans, when they know they are being watched, modify their behavior. You watched me watching you, and then you set conditions, and then you made me try the food. The closest thing to a smile he had seen on her face appeared. It was a subtle thing, a relaxation of the usual careful control around her eyes. Oh, you are annoyingly authentic. I'll take that as a compliment. It is the highest one I have. The review was on day 10. Dobbs came back with her 2 associates and a 4th figure this time. A compact senior officer who did not introduce himself and said nothing for the first 20 minutes. Vielle presented the project. Caleb sat beside her. She did not present it like a research paper. She presented it the way Caleb had taught her things got presented when they mattered. Like you were talking to a person, not performing for a committee. She talked about the rice, the stone, the letters to the dead, the coffee and the schedules and the shelves, the arguments, the silences, the moments when the data exceeded what any external observation could have produced. She talked about the gap, the space between what a species does and what it feels, and how the only way across that gap is not documentation, it's presence. The silent senior officer spoke for the first time at the end. The Convergence House's concern, he said, is that you have developed a personal connection to your subject. Yes, Vielle said. I have. And you believe this strengthens the archive. I believe, Vielle said, that if we are preserving what a species is, and we do it from outside without ever being changed by them, then we are not preserving them. We are pinning them. There is a difference between a specimen and a portrait, and the archive has never learned to paint. The room was quiet. This data, she said, will outlast both of us. It will tell civilizations 500 years from now what it was to know a human. Not what they looked like, not what they built. What it felt like to sit at a table with one and watch them argue with their own capacity for joy. She paused. I cannot get that from a window. Dobbs looked at her notes. She looked up. We will submit our report to the compact. They left. Caleb and Vielle sat in the quiet of the apartment. You think it worked? He said. I think, she said, that I said what was true. And humans often find truth persuasive, even when it is inconvenient. We do, he said. Eventually. The decision came 6 days later. The placement would continue, with extended authorization. Vielle received the notification at 4 a.m. She knocked on Caleb's door at 4:01. He opened it. He looked at her face, read the gold eyes, which he could now read the way he had once learned to read blueprints, not quickly, but correctly. We got it, he said. Yes. He leaned against the doorframe. He was very tired. He was also something else, something that lived in the same place in the chest where relief lives, but is not quite the same thing. How long? He said. The extension is for 1 standard galactic cycle, she said. Approximately 3 human years. 3 years. Okay, he said. Is that acceptable? Yeah. He ran a hand through his hair. Yeah, Vel, 3 years is acceptable. She stood in the hallway, and he stood in the doorway, and the apartment was quiet around them. Caleb, she said, I want to tell you why I was exiled. He had not forgotten. He had been waiting, without pressing, for 63 days. Okay, he said. I argued with the matriarch that the archive had a flaw, that we were preserving species we had never actually known, that we were collecting the what without ever understanding the why, and that without the why, we were not saving anyone. We were building a museum of ghosts. She said it evenly, the way people say the thing that cost them the most. She said that was irrelevant, that the purpose of the archive was preservation, not understanding. That feeling was not a scientific instrument. And you said. I said it was the only instrument that had ever produced something worth saving. The hallway, or the quiet, the lamp Caleb had left on. She exiled you for being right, he said. She exiled me for being inconvenient, Vielle said. It is a more common experience than being exiled for being wrong. Caleb looked at her for a long moment. You know what we do with people who get pushed out for seeing something true before everyone else catches up? What? We name things after them, he said. Eventually. Vielle made the sound, the almost laugh. It was clearer this time, more practiced. 3 weeks of human comedy had been good for it. She returned to her room. He went back to bed. He stared at the ceiling for a while. 3 years. She would be here for 3 more years. She would keep asking him questions he had to sit with before answering. She would rearrange his shelves and eat chalk blocks, and stand at the window narrating foot traffic patterns and make his cereal seem like an ethnographic event. She would be here. He had not realized until just now how much that mattered. Not the project. Her. The specific being who had decided that knowing a human, truly knowing one, was worth exile. In the kitchen, very faintly, he could hear her beginning her night meditation. The low harmonic tone that lived at the edge of hearing and settled something in the back of his teeth. He had stopped finding it strange weeks ago. Now it just meant the apartment was occupied, that someone else was in the building and awake and thinking. He closed his eyes. Outside, the city moved. Inside, Vielle hummed and thought and wrote, building her portrait of a human in the careful, deliberate way of someone who understood that the only things worth saving are the ones you are willing to be changed by. And Caleb Noor, 28 years old, former architecture student, urban planner, Ohio-born, and not remotely prepared for any of this, was being saved and did not have a word for it yet. He would find one. That was what humans did. They always, eventually, found the word.